We've chosen to examine the top 10 career incomes in UFC history in this video. Let's take a brief look at the process used to compile this list before we get going. First off, the figures are based on the total amount of money that the UFC and alone the UFC paid the competitors, which included basic pay, winnings, bonuses for good work, and the Reebok contract. What an athlete may have earned in other organizations such as Pride, Bellator, or the WEC is not included in these calculations. Previous events cannot be taken into account, as athletic commissions only started disclosing compensation following UFC 46, and no data for those bouts is available. Furthermore, money from sponsors and pay-per-view points that are earned outside of the UFC is not included in our calculations, which aren't public or other lucrative endeavors like professional wrestling. While megastars like Brock Lesnar and Ronda Rousey likely have higher net worths than many of the martial artists we've listed, much of their fortune was made outside the UFC. Lastly, since some athletic commissions don't release fighter purses, certain figures are estimates based on reported paydays in other jurisdictions around the same timeframes. While the amounts given aren't exact, they make for very solid estimates. Now that we've laid the groundwork, let's get into it. As always, if you guys enjoyed this video, then please be sure to let me know by leaving a like and subscribing to our channel. Now, without further ado, let's take a look at 10 of the highest earners in UFC history. Number 10. Donald Cerrone. Cerrone holding down the number 10 spot. We have the most active fighter in UFC history, a veteran of 37 bouts with the promotion, Donald "Cowboy" Cerrone. Thanks to his marketable persona and willingness to take on all comers, the Cowboy out of Colorado is a fan favorite who's been headlining fight night cards for years. Of course, the fact that he has the most fight night bonuses in UFC history, with 18 to his credit, hasn't hurt his bank account either. Moreover, winning a record-setting 21 fights in the UFC has helped add to his legacy and net worth. In total, this future UFC Hall of Famer has made roughly $6,816,000 competing in the octagon. Number 9. Andrei Arlovski. Coming in at number 9, we have another longtime UFC vet, former heavyweight champion Andrei the Pitbull Arlovski. The heavy-handed Belarusian has been competing on and off of the organization since November of 2000. The Pitbull currently holds the record for most heavyweight wins in UFC history, which stands at 20. Even at age 42, with 35 appearances in the octagon under his belt, Arlovski is still bringing in the big bucks. With his most recent win over Chase Sherman last April, the heavyweight mainstay took home around $356,000. Throughout his lengthy UFC career, Andrei Arlovski has made $6,840,000. It's also worth noting that the figure doesn't include his first 4 appearances in the UFC, which took place before paid info was released. Number 8. Jon Jones. At 23 years of age, Jon Bones Jones became the youngest champion in UFC history when he defeated Mauricio Shonowa for the light heavyweight championship back in 2011. Since then, he's been headlining pay-per-views and putting together one of the all-time great MMA resumes. In recent years, the 34-year-old has had his share of struggles outside the cage, but remains a top attraction who makes around $500,000 in show money alone per fight. From his UFC 182 clash with Daniel Cormier in 2015 to his last title defense against Dominic Reyes at UFC 247, Jones has made anywhere between $530,000 to $580,000 per contest. At present, the longtime light heavyweight king has earned $7,025,000 during his UFC tenure and looks to have more lucrative matchups in his future now that he's moved up to heavyweight. Number 7. St-Pierre. Our 7th highest earner is another MMA legend who's very much in the greatest of all-time conversation, St-Pierre. A UFC Hall of Famer, the proud French-Canadian has vanquished some of the sport's biggest names and been paid handsomely for doing so. The two-division champ had a knack for selling out venues, particularly in his home country, which is a big reason he wound up on our list. St-Pierre started out making just $6,000 in his 2004 UFC debut, but would work his way up to a massive $2,580,000 for facing Michael Bisping at UFC 217 in what would be the final fight of his career. By the time Rush hung up his gloves for good in 2017, the UFC had paid him a grand total of $7,037,000. Number 6. Junior Dos Santos. In March of 2021, former heavyweight champ Junior Dos Santos was unceremoniously released from the UFC. That said, the veteran of 23 fights in the promotion didn't leave empty-handed. In fact, the Brazilian walked away with an impressive haul totaling $7,110,000. Dos Santos was able to score a very favorable contract with his former employer. For his last 10 fights in the UFC, he earned between $410,000 to $830,000 in show money alone. Given his high price tag, it's easy to understand why the UFC decided to part ways with the heavyweight star last March, who was on a 4-fight losing streak at the time. That said, Dos Santos made a total of $1,975,000 over the course of his final 4 contests, which isn't a bad going-away present. Number 5. Michael Bisping. Michael the Count Bisping earned his place in the history books when he defeated Luke Rockhold for the middleweight title at UFC 199, becoming the first British fighter to win a championship in the promotion. Even prior to winning the gold, the trash talker out of England had become an international star who was at or near the top of the card nearly every time he competed in the UFC. The Hall of Famer racked up 20 professional wins after signing with Dana White & Company, which helped him earn more than a few big paydays, including the $540,000 he made in his mega bout with George "Rush" St-Pierre. By the time he retired in 2017, the Count had received a total of $7,135,000. Number 4. Anderson Silva. As the longest-reigning champion in UFC history, Anderson the Spider Silva was involved in quite a few lucrative bouts. During his impressive reign, Silva defeated stars like Dan Henderson, Chael Sonnen, and Vitor Belfort. That said, the Brazilian legend's biggest payday came after his historic title run ended. Surprisingly, the Spiders earned his largest UFC paycheck while co-headlining UFC 208. That evening, the longtime middleweight king earned a hard-fought decision victory over Derek Brunson and took home $820,000 for his efforts. This surefire Hall of Famer can count himself among the UFC's top career earners, totaling an impressive $8,732,000. Number 3. Alistair Overeem. Given that Alistair Overeem didn't have the same box office appeal as some of the other names on our list, some people might be surprised to see him at the number 3 spot. However, the heavyweight out of the Netherlands, or his management team more likely, inked a very nice contract. Overeem earned an extremely high base salary throughout most of his UFC tenure. For his 7 fights spanning from UFC Fight Night 87 in 2016 to his clash with Sergey Pavlovich in 2018, Overeem earned between $750,000 to $850,000 per fight in show money alone. In his last 4 fights prior to being released, the former heavyweight title challenger was still earning over $400,000 each time he stepped into the octagon. It's fair to assume that Overeem's high price tag played a role in the organization's decision to release him last March, despite winning 2 of his previous 3 fights. Still, the heavy-handed vet left the organization having made a whopping $9,914,500 by the time his UFC career was all said and done. Number 2. Khabib Nurmagomedov. Dagestan's Khabib the Eagle Nurmagomedov had long been regarded as one of the world's best fighters. Of course, it would be his heated feud with Conor McGregor that helped make the former UFC champ a megastar and one of the sport's premier attractions. From an earnings perspective, the Eagle is quite unique in that he made the overwhelming majority of his money in just 2 fights, his last 2, for successfully defending his title against Dustin Poirier at UFC 242. He took home $6,090,000. In what would be the last fight of his career, Nurmagomedov was again paid $6,090,000 following a submission victory over Justin Gaethje. For those who may be wondering, he made just $2 million in disclosed pay for his blockbuster UFC 299 bout with McGregor, but was fined $500,000 following the infamous post-fight brawl. The fact that he totaled $14,770,200 in the UFC likely made his decision to retire in his prime a bit easier. Number 1. Conor McGregor. The fact that the notorious Conor McGregor is the UFC's highest lifetime earner probably won't surprise anyone. His ability to trash talk and promote fights has made the Irishman a household name. Love him or hate him, there's no denying that the notorious one has taken the sport to new heights in terms of popularity. As one of the premier attractions in combat sports, McGregor has earned a pretty penny in the octagon. In his last 6 fights, the former 2-division champ made between $3 million to $5,011,000 per contest. McGregor's earnings of $25,302,000 is a lot of money by any reasonable measure. That said, it makes up a relatively small percentage of his net worth, which ranges between $200 million to $400 million, depending on the source. As always, if you guys enjoyed the video, please be sure to let me know by leaving a like and subscribing to our channel. Apart from that, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.